Pay attention. It is central to Buddhism to understand that to practice Buddhism is to study the self. To study the self is to forget the self. And to forget the self is to discover a deeper dimension of self that connects with all the world. It is an important concept to realize what the word meditation means. The word meditation means to familiarize the mind with. It's very important to realize we are familiarizing the mind, we are concentrating the mind all the time. The issue is, what is it that we're concentrating on? What is it that we are familiarizing the mind with? Well, what we're familiarizing the mind with is what it's already familiar with. It wants more of itself. And so we create lives. It seems the purpose of which is to create more of ourselves. But there is some underlying insecurity. The Four Noble Truths of Buddhism talk about life as suffering. The word in the ancient Pali language is dukkha, D-U-K-K-H-A. There is another translation for dukkha other than suffering that in many ways, I think for our contemporary lives, is more relevant. We have this idea of suffering as kind of some threshold of pain. We're okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. Oh, now I'm suffering. Things got really bad, now I'm suffering. There's another way of translating dukkha as unsatisfactoriness. That there is some itch that we can't scratch. There is some sense of something missing. And the Four Noble Truths begin with that statement of life is suffering, and of course, that's not a truthful statement. Life is not suffering. The subjective, uniquely human experience of life, which isn't really focused on life itself, but is focused on our life circumstances, our life situation, creates this dukkha, this unsatisfactoriness, this itch, this questing, this craving, this searching for what will make me enough, since I don't seem to have any real place in this world. As we live fooled by our senses and reinforced by conventional society's training of our orientation to society, to ourselves, to the world, this separateness is presented to us as all there is. Psychologically, it creates the construct, the idea of what Western psychology calls the ego, this matrix, this elaborate patterning of thoughts that are telling me who I am, what the world is about. And we live inside this delusion. Let me share with you a quote. A human being is part of a whole called by us the universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings, as something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. And this delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circles of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. What Zen teacher do you think said that? I'm not going to tease you with that. What I want you to know is that's Albert Einstein. The optical delusion that we suffer, that Buddhism, Hinduism, the wisdom traditions from every culture have been very clearly aware of, and that modern Western civilization is only now beginning to understand through its quantum physics. Western civilization completely lost in the delusion of the separateness. But those visionaries who are able to look at the universe with new eyes, Einstein, a scientist, mystic, who was able to see the truth of the way things are, and to see the consequences of living separated from the truth. We live in frightful times and deeply promising times. This group is here, and there are groups happening all over the world of people coming together to explore who they are at their deepest level. What is it? What does it mean to penetrate through this delusion, to live in a way in which, as Einstein suggests to us, that we free ourselves from this prison, widen our circle of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Those of you who are familiar with my writings or have come to other presentations that I give know that I am very focused on the issue of humanity in an evolutionary crisis. That just as any species, when it is no longer in a relationship that is mutually sustaining with its environment, comes into an evolutionary crisis, that species will either somehow evolve in a way to reestablish the harmony, or it will devolve to accommodate the new circumstances, or it'll go extinct. This is what humanity faces because we live in this delusion of separateness, of dualistic sense of here I am here, you are there. What is my purpose? I guess to make more of me. I mean, what is the American lifestyle? The American lifestyle, what is your purpose? You know, little child, you know, in any conventional sense, a little child were to say to their parent or to an adult or to a teacher, what's my purpose? Why am I here? brilliance of a little child if they're in, so why do I exist? You know, and there'd be the nice little answers, oh, you know, to love and be loved or whatever, but if somebody ever really took them seriously and answered the question seriously from the perspective of the society, it would be to make more of yourself. And eventually they get around, somebody gets around to telling a child that your purpose is to make more of yourself. Why? Because that's the way things are. If you don't make more of yourself, if you don't become really significant, if you don't become really sufficient, if you don't have substance in the world, life will just steamroll. It really. So we enter into this world of, I'm in it for me. And I gotta make as much of me as I possibly can. And so we do. And this is what Buddhism talks about as suffering. That sense of there is never enough. How much, Mommy, how much? How much does it take for me to be, well, more? How much more? Well, just more. And so we live, as Einstein says, in this delusion. What is our purpose? Another way of looking at our purpose, you know, the child might ask, what is my purpose? And, you know, mommy or daddy or a teacher might say, to be happy. Your purpose is to be happy. Oh, how do I get happy? Don't keep coming back to the same trap again. Well, you've got to make a secure place for yourself in the world and have security and do enough and have enough so that you are not beset by the problems of the world. Happiness is your circumstances in the world, and you must work very hard to make beneficial circumstances for you. And so we work very, very hard to make beneficial circumstances for ourselves. Does it bring us happiness? A little bit of happiness here, a little bit of happiness there. Happiness is a tricky word. What is it that we're really seeking? I guess it's to be able to scratch the itch. To be able to have the experience of well-being. I am okay. I truly, 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 truly am okay. Oh, you're okay? Well, what about if this circumstance comes along, or this situation? Will you still be okay? One of the great American Zen teachers, Charlotte Joko Beck, this is one of her teachings. Pay attention to, like, where's the boundary of your okayness? I'm okay, I'm okay, I'm okay. Where are you not okay? What will it take for you to be not okay? If this comes up, if you get an illness, or there's difficulty in a relationship, or if there's difficulty financially, or if there's difficulty in your occupation, where does okay turn into not okay? Pay attention. Where does okay turn into not okay? We're here to talk about enlightenment. We're here to talk about the full potential, the full evolutionary potential of a human being and of the human species. Enlightenment. And Buddhism, Hinduism, all of the wisdom traditions teach that enlightenment is okayness not determined by your circumstance, not determined by I'm okay until this happens, or I'm okay until that happens. Where is an okayness that within the Christian tradition is a peace that surpasseth all understanding? A place where you are beyond the circumstances. We're here today to talk a bit about the Bodhisattva path. What is the bodhisattva path? What is a bodhisattva? Bodhi, the root word of everything identified as Buddhism, Buddha, bodhisattva, bodhicitta, means awakened, enlightened, fully realized. Sattva is being. So an enlightened being. What is an enlightened being? That's what we're here to talk about. And what are the implications? Of course, the first bodhisattva was Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha. How many of you are familiar with the book, the little novella Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse? Good. Everybody. Wonderful passage, amongst so many wonderful passages in that little book, where Siddhartha as an old man talking with his lifelong friend, Govinda, who had become, as all of you who read the book know, marvelous literary device of taking the historic figure of Siddhartha Gautama and bifurcating it into two characters, Gautama the Buddha and Siddhartha, a contemporary within the context of the book, slightly younger than the Buddha, on a journey to enlightenment, but a very, very different journey than Gautama had taken, although at some points overlapping, both having gone through youths of luxury and privilege and spending time as an ascetic and realizing that denial of the world is not the way to spiritual realization, to enlightenment, and coming back into the world and then settling into another path. Govinda and Siddhartha are speaking to each other, and Govinda has asked Siddhartha if he would please impart to him some wisdom that he has found, that clearly he can realize by the presence of Siddhartha, that Siddhartha has found peace. And Govinda, even though he is a follower of the Buddha and had dedicated his life to being a follower, had taken up the robe and the bowl and was a follower of the Buddha, had not found that peace. So they're talking about this, and there's several very, very interesting passages in there. One of them, where Govinda says, Siddhartha, you are a seeker, I am a seeker too. And Siddhartha answers him, yes, you are a seeker. Perhaps you seek so much you cannot find. Again, that sense of somehow outside of ourselves in some teaching or some placement in the world, we will find that peace. So we seek. And Siddhartha is helping his friend to know that it isn't until you are fully ready to find, to give up the seeking, to realize that which is always there, that you can find. He also goes on to say something very interesting, which is that he had realized that knowledge can be communicated, but not wisdom. The wisdom, again, like we can seek knowledge, but we have to find wisdom. Knowledge is just more information, more of the form, more of the world. Some of it can be incredibly useful. Some of it can be incredibly inspirational. But wisdom, what is wisdom? Wisdom is knowing our place. To be able to touch the depth of who we are and realize that we are, one of my favorite quotes is Alan Watts said, we are the universe peering into itself from billions of points of view. And so wisdom is the recognition that all that is necessary for me to know the truth is to open into what I already know. And then he goes on to talk about love. He says what he had come to find, that what is most important in this world is love. And Govinda objects, saying, oh yeah, but the Buddha warned us against love, attachment. And Siddhartha responds, yes, and that's precisely why I don't trust words. The thing of itself, the fact of the Buddha's life, is so much more important here than the teaching of the warning against attachment. For the Buddha so loved humanity that he gave his life. He shared his life. He devoted his life to bringing the possibility of awakening out of being caught in the suffering, out of the unsatisfactoriness, out of the grasping after the meaning of who am I and what is my place and why am I in that which is outside of ourselves. And all this is to come back around to the question of, so why do we meditate? So why do we engage in anything that could be called a spiritual journey? Why do we seek? What are we doing? What are we doing here? And there are many answers to that. And many of them have to do with seeking personal peace, that we're still seeking through teachers, through practices. The one experience that will be the satori, will be the awakening, will be what turns the mental hinge, as they say in Zen, where the duality dissolves and suddenly seeing the world as it is becomes available to us. The Buddha's life is very instructive in this, and it needs to be instructive to us, and the calling to his followers to be bodhisattvas. What does it mean to be an enlightened being? Again, to me it is very important. One of the elements of spiritual journeying that I see as a very powerful hindrance, again, the seeking that gets in the way of the finding, is that we have an idea of something called enlightenment. We have an idea that there is some kind of end destination where suddenly I will go from being mortal to enlightened. I will go from being befuddled, from being bewildered, into having the clarity of a Buddha. And to me, that's just another trick of the ego. That's saying, oh, you will be able to accomplish this. You will be able to accumulate this. You will be able to take on the title. You'll be able to take on the role. Oh, I have found, I am Bodhisattva. I am enlightened. And of course that's nonsense, because once again, as we are in form, our form is all about impermanence. Our form is all about that which comes and goes, all about circumstances and situations. Enlightenment has to do with eternity. Enlightenment has to do with the infinite. To be at one with the eternal, to be at one with the infinite, to be at one with the universe. Is there any permanent state in our mortal form that is that? Was the Buddha even the Buddha? Is the Dalai Lama or Thich Nhat Hanh a bodhisattva in any kind of a sense that says they never have moments of doubt, they never have moments? I think this is one of the very good instructions about the life of Jesus. This transcendent master, who I look at as an avatar, I look at as a bodhisattva, as a realized Buddha, an enlightened being. But we're told of the times of doubt, questioning, being lost. So I'm sure the Dalai Lama has times of loss. I'm sure Gangaji, Ajahn Shanti, all of the people who are stepping forward as teachers, Eckhart Tolle, are they enlightened? No, they just have far more ready access to eternity. As Eckhart Tolle says, in the power of now, in the realization of moment to moment to moment to moment, developing the practice and sharing the practice. And what is Eckhart Tolle doing with his life? And what is Gangaji doing with her life? And what is Ajahn Shanti doing with his life? What is a bodhisattva? I want to share with you from a Tibetan American teacher who is the head of the Shambhala tradition of Tibet, Sakyam Nifang, who says a bodhisattva, a warrior, and warrior is a very important word. We'll talk a little bit more about that. To be a bodhisattva requires that you are a warrior. A bodhisattva warrior is one who cultivates compassion and wisdom, and who has the courage to live from the open heart. Why are we here? What are we doing? We want to be happy. Where is that happiness? This is what is so important. Happiness is in our finding our place within the universe. Not seeking our place within human society, but finding our place within the universe. And once we have found our place within the universe, that doesn't mean we're going, then all of this world of form, this dimension of us that is form, is going to continue to be seeking its place in the world of society. It's going to be seeking its way through the circumstances, and that's absolutely appropriate and necessary. Again, the Dalai Lama is struggling through the circumstances, and Thich Nhat Hanh struggles through his circumstances. Ajahn Shanti struggles through his circumstances. Gangaji struggles through her circumstances. And to me, and is the biggest little word in the world. And they know who they are. As Eckhart Tolle talks about, at the depth of your own being. Who talks about enlightenment as a felt sense of oneness with the ground of being. And when we feel our oneness with the ground of being, there is no such thing as the separate self. There is no me who has an agenda separate from the agenda of the universe. And so, even if our motivation for meditation or motivation for spiritual journey is our own personal happiness, it is so important to pay attention over and over and over again to the teaching which says you must, as Zen teacher Yasutani Roshi instructs us, it is imperative to abandon the idea of a myself standing in opposition to others. This is an illusion produced by a false view of things. To come to self-realization, you must directly experience yourself and the universe as one. You may understand this theoretically, yes, but you must let go of logical reasoning and grasp the real thing. This is what the real spiritual journey is, and this is what the journey of the Bodhisattva is about. and the realization that there is no such thing as my individual enlightenment, my individual liberation, as my purpose in life. Once we grasp that this idea of myself in opposition to others is a completely false view of things, that real happiness is in our participation with the universe, in the realization of the journey of the universe in form into consciousness. This is the essence of the Vedic traditions that Hinduism and Buddhism arise out of. It is also the essence of the Native American cosmology. Again, so different from our Western, the Abrahamic religious traditions that have God, the Creator, some anthropomorphic vision, a human-like being that creates out there a world and creates us humans out there in the image of God, of course, rather than the inverse, which is the case, the God in the image of humans. That beautiful, that amazing, powerful scene on the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, reaching to touch but unable to touch man and God. The Vedic tradition and the Native American tradition, very similar. Native American tradition says Spirit had a vision of a world and so manifested into it. Spirit dreamed a world and so it manifested. But just like with our own dreams, this is a little bit almost like the Sistine Chapel, but it was so that Spirit and the formed world of Spirit's dream could know each other. One animal was needed that walked in both worlds. And so humans were manifested to walk both in the world of form and the world of spirit. Consciousness, spirit is consciousness, the consciousness of the universe. Every culture has the primal archetypal drive towards deity, towards some kind of symbolization of the universal consciousness. And so it's called God, Yahweh, Allah, Brahma, Great Spirit. Every culture, it is a universal human experience. So of course, we must realize the truth that just as modern physics is now realizing, being able to create with electron microscopes and atom smashers and advanced level physics and that, to realize matter is energy. And it seems to be conscious. It seems to be conscious. The consciousness is not limited to humans or to animals. The universe itself, every atom, every electron, there's consciousness infused throughout the entire universe. So again, this delusion of separateness. This delusion is the predominant view, the one that we all were born into, the one that our society functions within. I had a new view on something the other day. I was talking about Native Americans and the history of this country and Native Americans. And it is my opinion that as part of the evolution of consciousness in this society and for individuals in this society, again, into awakening, into being able to see things as they truly are. So until we see things as they truly are, we're always operating out of lies. And we're very logical people. We pride ourselves on being very logical people. The problem is that logic is built on premises. And most of the premises of our logic are lies. Who's superior people, or why this happened, or what that's about, or whatever. So we're always, and again, another quote from Einstein that I find is incredibly prescient and very important to the modern age. A problem cannot be solved with the same consciousness that created the problem. That there's a new dimension of consciousness that is necessary to solve the problems of this dualistic delusion that modern human civilization operates in. And so I was talking about Native Americans. And I was talking about this country. This country has got to realize, firstly, that it was born in the most absolute, total, and successful act of genocide that any group of people has ever perpetrated. And what occurred to me then is, and what I said at the moment was, and that has karma to it. And then a little while later, in the quiet of presence, it occurred to me what the karma is. The karma is this ecological, environmental crisis that we now face. That we, as a dualistic culture, using the weapons of dualism, making war on nature, making war on a people, a civilization, a culture that was non-dualistic, that was immersed within nature, and the destruction, the consciousness that required the destruction of those people of nature is exactly the consciousness that then leads us to, has led us in the continuing destruction of nature until, like an out-of-control addict, even knowing the consequences, as we do, even though there are still so many who seek to be in denial. Welcome, come on. Even knowing the consequences, knowing, again, the scientific evidence being overwhelming. There's still those who are going, yeah, well, the scientists are cooking this up. Like an addict in denial of knowing, yet your liver is shot, you're going to die. You got to stop drinking. You got to stop using drugs. You got to stop eating. You got to stop, maybe you got to stop working so much. You're going to have a heart attack. All of these addictions that we engage in, which are ways of staying out of connection with the truth of our lives. Ways of staying unconscious in our lives, watching television, engaging in superficial personality seduction as we go around and about in our lives. All these ways of enhancing identification with the ego and the personality, and our suffering in form, because the ego thrives on conflict, the ego thrives on difficulty. It will create its sense of specialness out of its special difficulties, out of its special problems. All of these ways of staying unconscious. So, we are faced as a society, as a civilization, with this evolutionary crisis. Will we evolve? Will we devolve? Into some Mad Max Thunderdome kind of. Or a recent movie, really gripping, The Road, Viggo Mortensen. Again, another post-apocalyptic film. Will we devolve? Will it take that? I mean, I really believe humanity will survive. We're cockroaches. I don't think extinction is We're too clever. Our survival instinct is too strong. We'll figure out some way, in some brutish way, to continue existing. Or perhaps we will do so much damage that we won't be able to. Of course, I think if that much damage is done, it's all life on this planet, except maybe the cockroaches.
And mosquitoes.
And mosquitoes. The point is, what the Bodhisattva journey is, what is the evolution? What is the evolution? What is the journey of humanity? And I look then at Buddhism as a time capsule. A time capsule out of an ancient past, when civilizations were first taking their great steps of separation from nature, of declaring their own egoic greatness. We don't need nature. We stand separate from nature, and we will even create our own gods in our own image. We are superior. We don't need the universe. That arrogance that has set thousands of years of karma in motion. Out of the past, what is important to understand about karma is it is not inevitable. In a moment of consciousness, true consciousness, the realization of the truth of who we are, in waking up, karma is resolved. And so, here we are, the great and, the vast majority, and including ourselves, because in truth, even though we are at a gathering like this, the majority of our individual lives are spent living the life of the Matrix. I'm as guilty as anybody of just continuing to play out my own cultural programming, my own societal programming. You know, maybe I am living 90% immersed, where most folks are somewhere between 95 and 98% immersed. The issue is the waking up. That's what Buddhism is about. Wake up. Wake up. That's what all the spiritual teachings are about. Wake up, wake up. And so there is this phenomena of humanity awakening. We're gathered here. This is what satsang is. To encourage, this is what sangha is. Another one of the great Japanese Zen teachers, Dainin Katagiri, I love, he said, all of Buddhism can be summed up in wholeheartedness of presence. But the Buddha is realized, the Buddha is experienced, the Dharma is realized, and the Sangha is shared in wholeheartedness of presence. What is this wholeheartedness of presence? It is, as Yasutani says, the realization, the experience that you and the universe are one. There is no separation. That's wholeheartedness of presence. Wholeheartedness of presence is the realization that, well, on a conventional level, I sit here and you sit there. And between us is space. On a conventional level, the space separates us. On the level of the universe, the truth of the reality connects us. And so the Bodhisattva The Bodhisattva vows, I vow to save all sentient beings. And I vow to overcome delusion. And I vow to deepen understanding of the path to the cessation of suffering. And I vow to attain awakening into the truth of existence. I can't imagine anything more relevant to the circumstances of humanity today than for all who have the inclination to find, all who have an inclination to realize the truth of who they are within the destiny of the unfolding of the universe and the realization of itself. And to have as a motivation for our spiritual practice, to have as a motivation for our lives, to have as a motivation for our meditation. Again, the ego wants to say the bodhisattva is some end result realized perfect being. I say no, the bodhisattva is an intention. The bodhisattva is an inspiration. The bodhisattva is a direction for us to take our lives. In one of the Monday evening meditation classes, a question came up. It's just as we had experienced meditation here, and as I often do, I said, pay attention to how you feel. Pay attention to the sanity of it. Pay attention to the clarity of it. Pay attention to the calmness of it. Pay attention to the presence of it. Pay attention to the finding, the cessation of seeking. Here, just 10, 15, 20 minutes, being with the breath, sitting on the diamond throne, re-envisioning, stopping, running the program of the delusional self, to just for a few moments, just for a few minutes, sit in eternity. Here. So someone said, why is it, since I know this is good for me, since I feel so wonderful after I have meditated, why is it I have so much time finding space in my life for it? Why is it that I seem to avoid doing it? And in truth, when that question was asked, I did not give the answer that later came to me as the real answer. I gave another, it was a pretty good answer. But later I realized the real answer is because I don't want to meditate. Meditation is the end of I. Meditation is where I stop. And I, who's usually running the show, who's running it while we're taking care of our agenda and going through our calendar and making sure, again, seeking to make our place in the world one that is running the delusion that I will be happy if, I will be happy when, seeking our fulfillment in time, as Eckhart Tolle so brilliantly teaches us the delusion of that, seeking in time our fulfillment. Rather, the realization, as the Zen master says, this moment. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, this moment, perfect moment. This moment, my refuge. course, refuge is an incredibly important concept in Buddhism. I take refuge in the triple gems. I take refuge in the Buddha. This is what Katagiri was referring to. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. Of course, what does Buddha, Dharma, Sangha mean?
Especially Buddha.
Awaken. Awaken. Buddha, the one who awakened, the Buddha that wait inside each of us to awaken. The Dharma, the path, the realization, the reality, the truth of existence, the truth of an awakened universe. And the Sangha, the community of all those who have taken any step, the tiniest of step, to break out of the delusion. Anyone who in any way dedicates their life to truth. Toku Rinpoche shares with us that the entire career of a bodhisattva is governed by two major characteristics, wisdom and compassion. Buddhahood is accomplished by wisdom. What is wisdom? Again, as the fictional Hesse Siddhartha says, knowledge can be communicated, but not wisdom. Because it doesn't need communicating, it is who you already are. It is the realization of the truth. It is awakening into the truth, awakening into the realization, here the universe sits. Right where I sit, here the universe sits. And sharing. There's a definition, I don't remember where it comes from, definition of eternity, sometimes also referred to as the universe, as a circle whose center is everywhere and whose circumference is nowhere. So here I sit, a center. Hello center, hello center, hello center, hello center, hello center, hello center. Namaste. As Alan Watts said, who are we? The universe peering into itself from trillions of points of view. Hello, namaste. Wisdom. To be able to see that. And compassion. And of course, what is compassion? Compassion is the realization. Hello. Hello, me. Hello, fellow centers of the universe in its own reaching towards its destiny through human consciousness, all caught the same in the delusion of the separateness, caught in the delusion of form, caught in the delusion of identification with this body and with these mental processes and with the circumstances of my life. Oh, hello, I'm Bill Walz, yes, and I teach at UNCA, and I was born in Cleveland, Ohio, and grew up in Chicago, and I've traveled around the country, and I went to graduate school here, and I held this position and that position. You have all of these things, but we live as if we are all of these things. And Kirsten is my beautiful wife. But that's a deeper. That is, here we come back to the beautiful word and. Because yes, I have Kirsten as my wife. Kirsten has me as her husband. And there is an entity of consciousness that is shared. Wonderful meditation teacher, Stephen Levine, wrote a wonderful book about meditation called A Gradual Awakening. He and his wife, Andrea, wrote a book about relationship called Embracing the Beloved. Marvelous book, I recommend it to everyone. What they emphasized in their book is that in every truly loving relationship, there are three entities. There is each of the individuals, and the third entity of conscious shared energy that they create, which he referred to as the beloved. What is important is that while there are some measures of that which are exclusive, it must also be that it strengthens each of us back as individuals to be able to open into that kind of relationship with the rest of the world. Again, to recognize, to have as refuge the awakened consciousness of that space that we share, to be able to share and to bring into the world. All of this is the journey of the Bodhisattva. Toku Rinpoche goes on to say, with wisdom, the Bodhisattva recognizes others' suffering, and with compassion, eliminates it. Due to his wisdom, he becomes disentangled from samsara, from the delusion, from illusion, but due to his compassion, he remains in it. And we are in the world of delusion, and we are not meant for our spiritual journey to go off into some cave and sit in our own oneness with the universe. Because the oneness of the universe is in that cave, of course. It is also, and far more importantly, here. And at the offices that we work in, at the schools that we teach in, sidewalks that we walk down, and the markets that we shop in. And to bring wisdom and compassion, the wisdom of recognizing the connectedness, the wisdom of recognizing that we all share in this human dilemma of suffering, of unsatisfactoriness of our experience, of seeking, looking in all the wrong places. To be able to see that, and with a smile, with presence, with not allowing the space to separate us, but recognizing that the space connects us, we become bodhisattva warriors. We have courage to come out of the scariness of our separateness, to meet the world, to meet others. Owing to his wisdom, the Bodhisattva remains unattached to the world, but with his compassion, he embraces the world. Because of wisdom, he does not become conceited. Because of compassion, he does not become discouraged. This is what I hope we can bring to our meditation. And meditation is not sitting. Sitting is a very, very helpful posture, attitude to deepen our meditation. But if we are not sitting while we are walking, or perhaps I should use a different term, let's use the Japanese zazen. If our zazen is limited to where we sit, we do not understand zazen. Our zazen must be how we walk in the world. Our zazen must be how we work in the world. Our zazen must be how we love in the world. Our zazen must be how we greet the world. So sitting, what are we sitting? Again, I encourage you to cultivate this imagery until it is no longer an idea, but it is the felt sense that you are sitting with the universe. That the universe is sitting through you. And with this, we can, first as individuals, as our separate selves, as one of the apertures into the universe of form, we can begin to awaken. Then, oh, by the way, there's a wonderful payoff, which is where all this began with us searching for happiness. We begin finding it. We don't find it, again, the great and, I was going to say we don't find it outside of ourselves, but of course we find it outside of ourselves. We find it in another person, we find it in a bird in a tree, we find it in a puppy, we find it in a flower, we find it in a cloud, we find it all through the material world, but we're finding it because it is resonating with what is inside of us, what is already who we are. And so we can also sit in a cave with no external stimulus, no external identifiers, and be sitting with the universe and happy. Happy is a strange word. Probably more importantly, we sit awake. We sit. I like in the Shambhala tradition, I shared in Satsang we found before, it's the same meditation as Zen, it's the same meditation as Vipassana, but in the Shambhala tradition it's referred to as peaceful abiding, shamatha meditation. And we're able to peacefully abide. And we begin to realize this happiness, finally the itch that we've not been able to scratch, the unsatisfactoriness of life. We begin to discover it is not life that is unsatisfactory. How flaming egocentric and arrogant to have any notion that life is unsatisfactory. Of course, that's what humans do. Life is just not satisfactory. It is our perception of circumstances and the personalizing of those circumstances that is not satisfactory. And that's the delusion. So we come back to where I was sharing with Joko Beck, because Joko Beck says, create your own hierarchy. Where is your threshold of not okayness? Where is the place where it's not okay? That's the place that you work. That's the place that you work, because you have created your own private little universe of hell in a larger universe that's made up of all the not okay places. What is enlightenment? Enlightenment is the place where there are no not okay places. There are no not okay places. Everything is as it is. And in the purity of the moment, in the purity of eternity, in the purity of the universe, another one of my favorite Alan Watts phrases, everything is as it can be. It's a wonderful phrase because it is pointing to this evolutionary dynamic. It is saying that in this journey of the universe into consciousness, at this particular point, this little aperture in time and space, and the evolution of consciousness, these are the circumstances, and they are the only circumstances that could possibly be. Again, because of karma, because of the interconnectedness and interdependence. Everything that has happened before has brought this to occur. It is the only thing that can be. What do we do with that? We enter it with consciousness. As Eckhart Tolle says, not resistance. Suffering is in our resistance to what is. Rather, we enter into those circumstances that we have labeled as suffering, and we enter them with consciousness. And with consciousness, karma begins to be resolved. And so, our own individual lives deepen in that sense of well-being, of placement within the universe. And so too, a little bit of the aggregate of the human experience begins to come out of identification with delusion and conflict and move inch forward in its evolution. And quite possibly, just as for individuals, I mean, it's very important. There are kind of two schools. Actually, here having a satsang, many satsangs are kind of built around, sometimes, there are those teachers who are great proponents of spontaneous awakening and who don't particularly believe in meditation. And my perspective on that is, do spontaneous awakenings happen? Yes. But my suggestion is, while you're waiting for years, try meditation. Try the gradual approach. And along the way, you may have a spontaneous awakening. Wonderful. But there is a method through centuries and centuries, and a method that was given to us by the Buddha and has been practiced through centuries and centuries. And that those individuals who we can look at and realize that they approximate the awakening, they approximate the enlightenment, they approximate the knowing and the finding that we are seeking, such as the Dalai Lama, Thich Nhat Hanh. Every day they meditate still. That's what they teach, and I encourage. Because in the meditation, how in the world that we live in can we come to experience the universe sitting with us unless we stop running the program of me here and the universe out there? And so the sitting meditation, as I said, meditation is just familiar. It is familiar, what we're talking about, the Vipassana meditation, the Zen meditation, the Shamatha meditation, is stop running the program of conventional society. Deliberately stop. Create a form of physical stillness. Create a form in which the dynamic stillness, that is the truth of the universe, can be revealed at a felt level sense. That the silence that is the underpinning of the universe, out of which all sound emerges, can be experienced. As we sit, we can deliberately familiarize our mind, deepen our awareness of awareness as who we are. And then carry it into the world. And of course, that's the real task. If you confuse meditation with the sitting, rather than meditation as an attitude, the zazen as an attitude, and the formal sitting is just one place that strengthens the familiarization with this experience, it must be taken into the world. And that then is the path of the Bodhisattva. That requires courage. That requires the wisdom. That requires the compassion of the Bodhisattva. And with that, the vow, to take the vow, I vow to save all sentient beings. I vow to overcome delusion. I vow to deepen understanding of the path to the cessation of suffering. I vow to attain awakening into the truth of existence. And as Siddhartha Gautama, the Buddha, when he sat under the Bodhi tree, said, "And I will not move from this place until it is attained." Well, where is that place? Again, it is not a geographical place. It is your place in the universe that you carry with you. It is your consciousness awakened in any situation of your life that you're willing, able, courageous enough to stop running the program of the delusion. As Einstein shared with us, to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circles of compassion, to embrace all living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. I ask you to come back into meditation with me for a little bit. Okay. I would like to know what of I appreciate sometimes the word comes of what I'm talking about that's not entirely understandable, or that is understandable but some clarification would be very helpful. So I'd like, what is it that I might be able to engage in some dialogue with you concerning to help deepen your understanding. Again, always my purpose is the challenge of being a teacher is to use words to take you beyond words, to use ideas to take you beyond ideas, to use concepts to take you beyond concepts. This is the essence of Zen teaching. Again, felt realization. You must understand it. As Yasutani says, you understand this theoretically, but you must let go of logical reasoning and grasp the real thing. How within the world of logical reasoning here today can I help you to let go of logical reasoning and grasp the real thing?
I have trouble with the word happiness.
What is the trouble that you have?
Well, to me, happiness means joy and elation. I think of it more as peace and contentment.
Good. And I would share that with you, and that's what I encourage. And in fact, what becomes important to realize is that, again, talking about karma, what is the karma of a society that is founded with one of its principles, the pursuit of happiness? Firstly, what is this happiness thing? And to pursue it, again, becomes this, is this it? I don't know. throw it away. Is this it? Is this it? Is this it? So we're pursuing this, but we don't even know what it is. But of course, the most profound, the most validating, the most alive, truly alive experiences that we have are not happiness. You know, it's like happiness is winning a game. Happiness is getting a present that you like, or happiness is, getting a raise at work, or happiness. But those are not the finest moments of your life. The finest moments of your life. And one of the things that, again, coming back to the issue of felt sense, with meditation, what we hope to begin cultivating is the capacity to realize what Buddhism is talking about when it's talking about thoughts and emotions as mental forms. That there literally is, in the undifferentiated energy of mind, in the undifferentiated energy of consciousness, in the undifferentiated energy of awareness. Like, where is awareness? And can you grab awareness? Can you create some boundary around awareness? Of course, that's exactly why awareness is the essence of who we are and the essence of all things, because it is not that boundaried experience that comes and goes. It is the constant. It is the water in which we fish swim without knowing we are in water. Until we realize it. And again, this is what a fish, unless it gets out of the water, can't know that it's in the water. But we have the capacity, again, from that Native American myth, we have the capacity to realize, and I am in this world of form, and I am consciousness itself. And those most wonderful, most validating, most awakening, most enlightening moments are moments that are not felt like what we would, like happiness is a contraction. Happiness is a yeah. So happiness is kind of like a mental form. There's something there is the peace that surpasseth all understanding. There is the connectedness. There is the realization of the truth of who we are, the realization of the truth of life. And those moments are always expansive, boundaryless. There is no contraction. The contraction evaporates. The space no longer separates. There is no space. There's only this connection. Infinite expansion. Infinite expansion. And so, yes, happiness. Happiness is a very limited concept. But in order to communicate, it's a good teaching tool. It's a good beginning place to say, can we agree that we want happiness? And then the point is to be able to take people to realize that what they are calling happiness is not what they're actually looking for. And that their idea that happiness is something that will happen is not what they are looking for. There are all kinds of things that happen. Some of them will be pleasing to our form, some of them will be unpleasant for our form. But they all come and go. They all come and go. They all come and go. Is when we make connection to what does not come and go. Those are the moments of awakening. Those are the moments of enlightenment. Those are the moments of true self-realization. And we can cultivate access. Charlotte Joko Beck, the American Zen teacher that I referred to before, has a wonderful, wonderful way of conceptualizing this when she says, awareness is who we are. But we block it with our self-centered thinking. And important to realize that almost all thought is self-centered thinking. It might be all thought is, I just don't want to be so audacious as to say all thought is. But pretty much all thought is self-centered, because what is all thought? All thought is the reforming of the idea of me in the world as I know it. And that blocks us because the idea of me in the world as I know it is this dualistic world of anxious separation. And then, in a moment, it dissolves. And we are present, as Diamond Katakiri says, in wholeheartedness. Felt realization of presence. There we are. Yes, Jack.
This is the perfect time to ask this question, because you said the truth. Most thinking is self-centered, me, bodhisattva, vow. How can I serve? What can I do to continue to serve the free all sentient beings? Realizing what you're saying, I get to some degree, and realizing what you said about the neurotic mind, I get even more. Well, I won't say more, but I get it. I am it. So my question goes like this. What can we, or each of us, consciously do to awaken our world, society, I'm really asking about me, to its demise right now, as it's demising, if there is such a word, financially, ecologically, spiritually, in what appears to be this collapse, call it a dualistic collapse. Yes, you've encouraged us to be in presence, to awaken to this moment, to know that everything I'm saying for the most part is completely narcissistic, dualistic, and I am watching my own mind be worried if what seems to be cycles that occur cyclically over a period of many, many years occurs, the world that we know and the life that we live will be drastically changed. And I'm just wondering, I know a little to say, just be here. Know that your mind attaches to this dualistic way of thinking. When I can do that a little bit, life is just okay, which is pretty good to have it okay. And the but is, I forget. And I do get anxious, a little worried, and that self-centered person says, I worked a long time to be able now not to have to worry about a meltdown on so many levels. I won't even mention what the government is doing with lots of prison camps all over the country when there will be people protesting and doing more than protesting. And
let me begin to try to answer, because the question keeps morphing.
And final thought, and then I will shut up. There are nylon guns that are being sold all over the world that can't be seen on detectors, etc., etc., etc. This is not just...
The world of samsara, like ego, is infinitely clever, sneaky.
Yes, like a snake.
It's a game of whack-a-mole. Every time you believe that you have something suppressed, some expression of the destructive elements of form, that believe power is the way to significance, and happiness will be found in my significance, achieving my significance, which requires me to take your significance away.
Yep.
Every time we believe that somehow we have found a way of suppressing it, it will pop up here, it will pop up there. You mentioned cyclic, and what I want to say is that it's important to realize that history is not cyclic. It is spiraling. It is important, it is extremely important to realize that the evolution of consciousness has been taking place, is taking place, that we have evolved out of tribalism in its most, again, unfortunately, I don't mean the tribalism of Native Americans or that, but, you know, more like kind of the tribalism of the Balkans in the past century. We've evolved out of tribalism, we've evolved out of monarchism and aristocracies, we've evolved out of belief in slavery as being a natural phenomenon. We have evolved out of the absolute grosser levels of racism, in which we really do believe that other people of other races are subhuman, that those who are human are only me and mine. We have evolved beyond generally, again, the grosser dimensions of sexism. We are now confronting issues of sexual orientation. Again, what is evolution? What is the evolution of consciousness? What is the evolution of humanity? What is all of this? What is the awakening? The awakening is into the realization of the totality of interconnectedness and interdependence. The universe. It'll be good enough when we can get the planet to realize we are absolutely inextricably interconnected and interdependent with the planet itself and all of the sentient beings, all of the phenomena, that not only are human rights important, but animal rights are important, and forest rights are important, and water rights are important. The planet's right to a sustainable, flourishing ecosystem is every bit as important as my individual liberties. And we are evolving towards it. Now, at any given moment in history, it feels like the battle is being lost. At any given moment in the civil rights movement, it felt like this will never happen. At any given moment in the struggle for women's suffrage, it felt like this will never happen. At any given moment in the struggle to end slavery, it felt like this will never happen. At any given moment principally because, and this is what politics is about, politics is consciousness. My politics are what could be conventionally defined as progressive politics, because I believe progressive politics is the politics of consciousness, which means progressivism means that the concept of who is included grows. Conservative politics is the definition of who is included is supposed to stay exactly as it is, or even maybe shrink. Too many have been included. We need to get rid of we need a purge, to get it back to the core values, the core real Americans, or the core real this, or that's conservative politics. Progressive politics always wins. However, it's a guerrilla war. which is you lose every battle. Because you are faced with superior forces, which is the status quo, the conservative status quo, those who wish to conserve the status quo. You lose every battle. However, in the struggle itself, this is where the answer, the core answer to your question, and within what it is to be a bodhisattva, the qualities to discover within yourself and to nurture: wisdom, compassion, courage. These are the traits of the bodhisattva. The wisdom to be awake in your own life, to not be deluded by these false boundaries, to believe in any of these false boundaries, to be able to realize the universe. There is no hierarchy, there is no separation, there is the universe in its holism, in its interconnectedness, in its interdependence. There is the planet Earth in its interconnectedness, in its interdependence. There is the human species in its interconnectedness, in its interdependence. There are none of these. You're valuable and you're not valuable. And here we confront our own conditioning. Here we confront that we've all been conditioned into various levels of identification with who's important and who's not, who counts and who doesn't count, where I should bring my efforts and where it doesn't matter whether I bring my efforts. And so we enter into a process of our own evolution. To confront the places where we are not wise, meaning we are not truly experiencing at a felt level the interconnectedness and the interdependence, the sacredness of all of life, where we are engaging in practices of objectification for purposes of use and misuse, and rather than staying in the subjective identification with all of life, to be able to confront that, to have the courage to keep coming back over and over again, over and over and over again. Now, how do we do it for others? To have the courage, to bring the wisdom, to have the compassion, so that you're not the other who's the enemy, who I have to fight or I have to eliminate, but you are a brother, you are a compatriot, you are a fellow in the human condition, suffering within the delusion. Compassion. Dalai Lama is very clear. Compassion is not feeling for those who it's easy to feel for, who you already identify with. He says that's just more ego attachment. If something happens with Kirsten, I feel bad about it. That's not compassion, because Kirsten is a part of me, so that's attachment. I want this idea of me to be okay, and she's part of the idea of me, so that's not compassion. Something happens to you, you're my friend, you're my student, you're somebody who I know well and I care about. Something happens to you, I care about you, and what happens, that's not compassion. Compassion cannot be extended to those who are your enemies, those who wish to do you harm, those who are seeking to do you harm, those who don't have a clue about your humanity, those who have objectified you, those who have abused you, those who have used you. If your compassion cannot extend to them, then it is not true compassion. Because we are all, this is the wisdom, we are all in this together. To have the wisdom to realize we are all in this together the compassion to not turn those who disagree with us into our enemies, but we don't have to try to convince of anything. And so this is why a Gandhi or a Martin Luther King is a bodhisattva. I will not hate those who hate me. Dalai Lama expands this. This is where it becomes, it's very interesting. Asked, does he hate the Chinese? The first level of his answer was, they've taken everything that matters to me. Would you also have them take my mind? Because when you have somebody occupying your mind as the object of your hatred or your anger, they own your mind. All of your thoughts, all of your emotions are being directed to the very person who you would least like to have occupying your consciousness. So, again, the spiritual practice of forgiveness that Jesus taught, that Buddha teaches, that all of the great religions teach, it has nothing to do with generosity to the other person. It is an act of compassion towards yourself. An act of liberation towards yourself. And then he goes on to talk about true compassion, that the Chinese are human beings just like you and I, seeking to find release from suffering. They're just going about it in a completely deluded way, taking what does not belong to them. Seeking happiness in the inflation of the self. We are the strong, we are the powerful, we are the important, we are the ones who count. You Tibetans, don't. You're just a subset of us Chinese. It's a delusion. It's a delusion, but they live inside that delusion. And to be able to see them compassionate. So to do the work on ourselves and then to have the courage to show up again as a Gandhi, as a Martin Luther King, to be able to show up in the world, not with anger and hatred, but with truth, with wisdom. And to be instruments of illustrating the delusion that when you beat me down for no good reason, there are those who see you are beating me down for no good reason. And their consciousness grows. And so the consciousness of humanity grows. And that's why progressive politics always wins after losing every war. Because every time, every battle is fought, there is somebody on the sidelines watching it, going, this isn't right. Their own wisdom resonates. And little bit by little bit by little bit, the consciousness of interconnectedness grows. The idea of who counts and who doesn't count grows. It's happening right now with the issue of gay rights. It's a generational divide. Again, anybody will tell you 10, 15, 20 years from now it won't matter. Why? Because the kids now, it doesn't matter to. They have had enough experience to be able to transcend it. What are you talking about? You know, they're just like you and me. They just, you know, like different people. That's all it's. There's nothing going on here. So while there's all of this in the current sense and referendums and votes that are striking down, you know, and refusing to recognize that gay rights is a civil rights. Well, that, you know, there's tremendous frustration. The war is being won. And it will be won. And little bit by little bit, the internet is connecting all of the world, and you have all of these false ideas about separations and boundaries and who counts and who doesn't count and whatsoever. But at this other level, again, young people all across the world are interconnected electronically. Beginning to have barriers come down, So it's all happening. The issue for us individually is to face it within ourselves. and to be able to have the courage to show up and face it compassionately with others. There's been a shift in my own dietary habits in the last several years. Kirsten is greatly responsible. And I am responsible. Which is that over time, she is a vegetarian and has compassionately, not adversarially, but compassionately helped me to realize I don't choose to participate in the industrial slaughter of the cows and the pigs, the fellow beings, who are tasty as hell, there's no doubt about it. No doubt about it, they're very tasty. That doesn't mean I should be eating them. I don't need to be eating them. There are other lower consciousness entities that do not suffer at the same kinds of levels that the cows and the pigs. And so again, to keep showing up with courage and compassion and bringing wisdom, that's the Bodhisattva path. Within your own inner dialogue, because as Zen keeps asking, who is this? Who is this? Who is this? Every time a thought arises, every time an attitude arises, every time a behavior arises, to ask the question, who is this? To help you deepen the recognition that you're just this conglomerate of conditioned patterns of reaction, which begins to liberate your identity from these conditioned patterns of reaction. Because ultimately then the question is, who is this that sees? Who is this that experiences? This awareness that is the witness, deepening the realization, I am this awareness. I am not any of these conditioned coming and going ideas or behaviors or forms, and this is the great liberation. And with that, our consciousness grows. This is the path of the Bodhisattva. And to practice, and this is what I hope I can give you as something to hang on to wisdom. What is wisdom? Knowing beyond, to be able to realize so much of what I believe is just this arbitrary conditioning. At a deeper level, what do you know? And we know so much that we ignore, that we override. We know right from wrong. We know right from wrong. I mean, how much simpler can it be said than do unto others as you'd have them do unto you? If you wouldn't have it done to you, don't do it to anybody else. Okay? Every child knows this. Every child knows this. You know, the precepts: abstain from killing, abstain from stealing, abstain from sexual misconduct, abstain from lying, and abstain from intoxication, which basically means engaging in behaviors that strengthen your ego, that strengthen your refusal to see things as they are. That's it. That's part of the path of the Bodhisattva. And the vowing that's referred to here doesn't mean, that you go through some ceremony and you hold up your hands or you place them on the Bible or any of this. To your own deepest self. To vow the realization of truth. And again, then your motivation for meditation. To realize that I, who doesn't want to meditate, is the one who doesn't want you to know the truth, to be the truth, to live the truth. Wants you to continue to live the delusion, live the lies. So do you have the courage? Wisdom, compassion, courage. Do you have the courage Just to face yourself. And again, sitting is a metaphor. You have the courage to sit while you're engaged in your life and you're about to lie to someone or you're about to steal. And again, stealing is a very subtle thing. It doesn't mean, it just means taking what isn't yours or taking what you haven't earned. And to be present enough in wholeheartedness of presence. Presence is required to be the witness. Who is it that's trying to pull this shit? Who is it that's trying to get away with this? Who is it that's... These are the practices. So again, it becomes so simple, so simple. That's what I love about Buddha. It's also simple, infinitely challenging. But the method itself, sit. Stop running your program, sit. Focus into your breathing. The program, as is represented by your mental commotion, keeps trying to interrupt you from it. Don't get interrupted by it. Just come back to the essence of life. This breath, this breath, this breath, this breath. And as that happens, you begin to break free of being totally identified, totally enslaved to this matrix of ideas, these self-centered ideas, full of trickery, full of deceit, full of self-delusion, full of arrogance, full of... Just let it arise. Again, non-judgmentally. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Again, that's not any finger pointing, it's saying, it's a warning. The moment you engage in judgment, you are trapped in the world of judgment. And that sucker turns back on you. Judge not, lest ye be judged. Spiritual teachings from all traditions. Wisdom, compassion, courage, presence. And with that, the world will change.
Thank you very much. That last thing that you said, I've been waiting years to hear. Everything you said was so consciously helpful. But when you said, when you judge someone, it immediately comes back at you. And I'm trying to figure out how not to be judgmental. That helps me enormously because it's like a snake. And it does come right back. So don't
Turns
do it.
immediately on you. Turns immediately on you. You are caught in the world of self-judgment. The moment you're caught in dualism again, that's the karma. Just like the karma of this society, the karma of destroying a non-dualistic culture is that we will reap the destructiveness of believing in the delusion of the dualism.
Really?
The mind that can destroy that culture is the mind that will turn on itself and destroy itself.
Yes.
Anything else? Mark, you have some questions.
A friend of mine was always saying don't mind it, which based on my Zen Buddhism is equivalent to non-attachment outcome. You mentioned being grounded, but besides grounding, how is balance effectively achieved between a healthy ego and an open heart? For us to define each in layman's terms.
Okay. The issue is, who are you? Are you your ego?
No.
You may understand this theoretically.
Yes. That's not the issue.
But you must grasp the real thing.
Yes.
Again, we've all been doing a lot of reading. All read Eckhart Tolle and have been reading about Zen and Buddhism, and we have this intellectual understanding that we are not our ego. But we must continue to have the courage to press beyond the intellectual understanding into the experience of the real thing. I sometimes ask people, a group, and see if in this group, is there anybody who's had a near-death experience? At the moment when what it seemed to be was that it's all over, not in time, in the moment itself. Was there any problem with it? Moshe, you had said, you were nodding your head. That, was there any real problem when there was a realization, oh, I'm dead? This looks like it's the end, I'm dead. Was there any problem with that?
No.
No, there was no problem with it whatsoever. And yet, we live our lives, and many, many philosophers, many, many psychologists will say, you know, that the greatest dread, the greatest fear, even the greatest motivator. I mean, Freud talked about thanatos, the death fear, the fear of death. That is this great motivating factor in our lives, driving. That is the ego motivator. That is the ego drive. And the greatest fear of the ego is its non-existence. I mean, it's little fear, the little death that creeps in all the time is, I will not be enough. The great fear is, I won't be at all. Okay? But when we actually are confronted with the reality of not being at all, there's no problem. As I shared in the class with seniors the other day, probably all, again, because that's a group with, this is not a group of children either. You've all experienced people close to you dying. I hope that you had the honor of the experience such as I had with the death of my mother, to experience a woman who had lived in the grip of a great deal of anxiety, a personality that was somewhat compulsive, trying to control everything. When her death was a certainty, when she had been told you have either, it can happen 2 weeks to 2 months. She had acute leukemia. Nothing we can do. You're 86 years old, and this is what's going to happen. I was able to have a quality of presence and sharing with my mother during that time that surpassed everything that happened in all of the many, many years that preceded that. Why? Because her ego left town. So ego is this idea of self that has some control over its destiny. And taking it to its most fundamental energetic level, there are only 2 emotions. Those emotions are fear and love. Fear is the experience of contraction and receptiveness. Love is the experience of expansion into union. As long as we are in our ego, as long as we are identified with the ego, we are caught in this world of the hierarchy of this is the good stuff and this is the bad stuff, this is the great stuff and this is the totally unacceptable stuff. This is my wish come true, and this is catastrophe. Again, all these gradations of... And of course, within that, the great catastrophe, the ultimate penalty, ironic since it happens to everyone, is death. And then we have all these little deaths, which are ego defeats. That's not the way I wanted that to happen. That's not the way I. That's not the way I. Now, as long as we're dualistic, we can go, well, there is this other world, this I could look at it this way, or I could look at it that way, but that's not ever going to get you there. You have to be able to enter into the full paradox of the non-dualistic reality of truth, which is we are in this egoic, circumstantial world. What is our ego? Our ego, I love, Eckhart Tolle was very accurate when he talks about it is our computer. It is our capacity for the storage of information, for the manipulation of information, to engage the world of form. Just like my hands are an instrument, a tool, to be able to engage the world of form, to do this and to do that, so our cognitive abilities are this marvelous, marvelous, intricate tool to engage the world of form, to manipulate the world of form.
So
The difference between my hands and my mental process called the ego is my hands don't believe that they're who, that they are me. My hands don't believe that they control their destiny. My hands don't have any sense of, oh, this is the good stuff and this is the not good stuff. On a very literal level, yes, I can place, oh, no, and it'll withdraw itself. But it doesn't have all these subjective ideas about what's okay and what's not okay and what's acceptable and what's not acceptable. This brain, this mental computer, has all kinds of such ideas. And just as when confronted with the reality of death, and so the ego has lost the game. And of course that's what it is. This life circumstance is a game. You start here with birth, and you go to here, which is the end result, is the death, and then it's like we're going to try to accumulate as many points along the way as we can. But it really doesn't have any more importance than that. And what happens along the way is that we separate ourselves from the direct felt experience of life itself, confusing life circumstances for life and our life circumstances for who we are. And so we have all this subjective suffering. That's what the Buddha was talking about. That's what's unique to human beings. We attach to this idea of a separate self, all of its cravings and clingings, and we measure whether we're winning at the game or not as if it is life and death. And all emotion is a physical resonance of these ideas, and so we have ideas of, oh, I can't handle that. I can't deal with that. Oh, no, 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 no. And the resonation of it is emotion of terror and horror and anger. And everything is as it can be. And to be able to realize, and I have my life circumstances, and I have this ego, and because I am conditioned by this society, I have a very, very dysfunctional level of identification with this ego. I'm going to experience a certain amount of suffering. There's going to be stuff that I'm going to have a real hard time not being reactive to. And I am the universe peering into itself. I am life itself that contains death, There is no life without death. There is no black without white. There is no up without down. There is no comfort without discomfort. Everything, this world, this universe is everything, and I am of this everything. And as long as I don't freak out in my mind and identify with my reactive thoughts about I can't handle this, I can't deal with this, surprisingly we can. And of course, this experience has happened over and over and over and over again in our lives. We have been confronted with a relationship situation or a job situation or a possession, or something that because turbulence or difficulty or loss of it came into it, we would go into some period of reactivity over it. Because I can't be okay with that. I can't be okay with that. But then a little bit of time passes, and lo and behold, we are okay with it. So, what separates our okayness in time from our not okayness at an event?
I think most times it's a knee-jerk reaction. It's programming.
Conditioning. So, as you increase the spaciousness,
That awareness.
which is what awareness is, as you experience your life, as you cultivate skillfulness, as your knee-jerks come up, your reactions come up, your contractions occur, and I teach this, it's very, very helpful, I believe. Pay attention to where the contractions of your energy occur. Now, that may not make any sense to you at all. But of course you experience it. That's what tension is. That's what anger is. You get angry, what happens? There is this contraction. And it happens in the mind before it happens in the body. You can feel the contraction in the mind. What is envy, or what is lust, or what is, deadly sins? There are all these contractions and identification with the contraction in our minds. And if you have been cultivating an awareness that who you are is the space in which the events occur, that's the awareness. The awareness is the space in which life occurs. And you are that awareness. You are that space. As you cultivate deepening identification with the spacious awareness, rather than the reactive ego, you can begin to experience the contractions. And as you experience them, just as you experience the thought stream in your meditation, this is what I say, spontaneous awakening happens, God bless you, but in the meanwhile, meditate. In the meanwhile, be cultivating the realization that you are the space in which the forms, the action of your life occurs. And that's going on in your mind. And so as you become less reactive, less identified with the thought forms, with the emotion forms, with the sense perception forms that arise in your mind, and you become more and more identified with, I am the witnessing spacious awareness in which it all is arising and passing, then too, here in the world of form, as events happen, you have more space. Oh. And you can feel yourself going, but you don't have to go there. And as Joko Beck was sharing with us, then the practice becomes, where is your line of not okayness? It's different for everybody. It's different for everybody. I'm okay with this, but I'm not okay with that. Somebody would say, I'd be okay if I lost my job. Well, I'd not be okay if I lost my job. I'll be okay if the stock market crashes, if I'm left penniless. I know it'll be tough, but I know I'll be okay. No, I couldn't do that. No, that wouldn't work for me. I'd jump out of building. Again, everybody has this, what's your level? Where is it stop being okay to not be, for something to be not okay? And that's where your work is. That's where your work is.
Quick sub-question. Is there such a thing as a healthy ego, or is that an oxymoron?
No, absolutely not. A healthy ego is when your ego serves you just as your hands do. My ego is bringing you this presentation. There is no language without ego. There are no words, there's no information, there's no ideas, there's no knowledge. And my journey here, my purpose here is how do I take this information, these words, this knowledge, and get it across the divide into wisdom. And it's with presence. And I'm here to combine information,
And experience?
which is more information. Not entirely, because again, experience crosses both divides. The experience is in both dimensions. But to give life, to give connectedness, to connect with you as in awareness, as a being, as a presence, and then the information that is from the ego, that is of the ego, has the opportunity to transcend, to be transcendent. And so the ego is this incredibly complex, incredibly, I mean, this is what separates humanity. Literally, this is the source of humanity's separation from nature. Do you know that you are nature? This little koan I always throw out. Do you know? Not intellectually. Some of us may intellectually, oh, of course, I've heard what he's talked about, and I've heard about ecology, and I've studied physics. Oh, yeah. Do you feel that this is the practice of Zen? Zen Master Yasutani will talk about the practice of Zen is the act of transcending the self, of letting go of the self in the act of uniting with life, or with any aspect, with any phenomenon of life. So it's not I see you, I'm talking to you, dualistic, I'm here, you're there. The act is seeing, hearing, communicating, not two, one. The space connects, does not separate. To not look at the bird in the tree singing and go, oh, isn't that nice? I'm looking at a bird in a tree. That's nice. No, to be the bird in the tree through the act of seeing. That's Zen. To make the connection a living experience. And ego is this incredibly valuable tool for getting us around in the world of form, for being inventive in the world of form, for being creative in the world of form. But as Tolle says, when you mistake it for who you are, it becomes a disaster. And that is the practice, to recognize ego arising and taking over as the owner, rather than simply being an instrument of interaction.
We don't think our computers are ourselves. That's all it is.
But that's because it sits on a desk. If your computer literally was on the top of your shoulders, because that's what it is. Again, computers are just these electronic devices that were developed to mimic the functioning of the human brain. To store information, to work with information, to project information. That's all it is. So virtual reality of computers is nothing new. It's virtual reality squared. We're already living in a virtual reality. That's what the teaching is all about. To break free, to be liberated from, to awaken, Buddhism, awaken out of the virtual reality of the programming of the ego computer into direct experience of the truth of life. Interconnected, interdependent, holistic. This moment is all there is. To be able to inhabit life fully, without holding on to, because all of the problems that you're talking about are about, oh, I won't be able to deal with the next moment. Okay, right? If I lose this or this happens, I won't be able to deal with the next moment. Well, that's all happening in your mind. Of course, you will deal with the next moment. As soon as the next moment becomes this moment, you're dealing with it. But then you're already into the next moment and your anxiety about the next moment. But if you just stay with this moment, it's all okay. And we do have lives in a social context. And so we do have to manage that, and this ego is a very useful tool in helping us manage that so that we don't have to face a lot of catastrophes moment to moment to moment, being okay with them. What else would somebody like to explore? We've taken up probably half an hour over our scheduled time. There's nobody to kick us out. Anybody would like to share, talk about? And I want to thank you so very much for coming and sharing this time together, these moments together. Sit here with me for just a moment. Somebody brought to my attention the other day that I did Shanti in one of his satsangs. I said, okay, let's now meditate together. And then there was all this rustling as there is now as people assume this particular posture. And he went, what are you doing? I didn't tell you to sit a particular way. What's useful about that is, I didn't see it, so I don't know, how. The issue is meditation is, in Zen they talk about the mental hinge, but a gateless gate. It is not a shift in your physical posture. It is a shift, or not a shift, because you may have all been already meditating. Clearly, this context of what we're doing here, in that sense of deep presence, which isn't to in any way admonish folks for coming into a particular posture, but it is, what I want to do is to help deepen the sense of the meditation of true self-discovery, while it is enhanced tremendously through the practice of formal sitting meditation and taking a posture which aligns you with the energies of the world and the universe and all of that. The real meditation is just being present, in wholeheartedness of presence. It's all realized. But let's just sit. And let the last few hours penetrate us to a cellular level. And perhaps you might reflect on the issue of the Bodhisattva vow and the whole concept of allowing in your life into awakening, into a deliberate practice of developing wisdom, knowing things for what they are, being able to see through the delusions, see through your own programming, compassion, to be able to understand connectedness, to live connectedness, that can be extended even to those who you are in conflict with. And then the courage to begin reshaping your life, to showing up as a bodhisattva warrior, which is why the warrior image is used. The courage to show up in life claiming this is my place. I cannot be budged from this place because it is my place. It is my place in the universe. And I have the courage to enter into the struggle of the liberation of all sentient beings and to overcoming of delusion. And the understanding, deepening the understanding of the path to liberation. Consider silently, quietly, humbly, vowing to your deepest self to walk this life with that level of integrity. So again, thank you. I want to let you know that there's